So welcome back to another special edition of Acacia EdTalks with our third colleague in celebration of Neurodiversity Week. Over the past two talks, we've heard incredible stories from our neurodiverse colleagues about their experiences, challenges and strengths, and especially their superpowers. Today, we're diving in even deeper. We're going to look at hopefully challenging some common myths, exploring how neurodiversity has benefited Summer in her role, and discussing what inclusion can truly look like. I'm thrilled to be joined by Summer, who I've already mentioned, who's going to bring a wealth of experience and insight from her point of view. So thank you ever so much for joining us, Summer.
Thank you for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself, your role at Acacia for me?
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm a tutor coach. I'm currently working in with the children's residential sector. So that means I'm part of the delivery team that's working directly with our adult apprentices. So I'm delivering up to a level 5 in Resi and up to level 2 in English and Maths functional skills as well.
Lovely. Okay. So tell us a bit about when you first became aware of your new neurodiversity, you know, where that was recognised, what it is, what it looks like for you, and how has that shaped you personally and professionally?
Well, as we've discussed, I'm nearly at the big 4-0, so please indulge me for a moment while I backtrack right to childhood. Okay, so as a child, my parents did fight for some form of diagnosis for me. So at the age of 7, I had a range of tests, and I sort of remember them. There was bits and pieces happening and a bit of a like playing with blocks and reading and writing and things like that. They knew that I wasn't at the normal standards because I've got 2 older siblings, but there were other areas where I really excelled, which was verbal communication. I didn't need to walk until I was 2 because I was bossing my brothers around. They did everything for me. But at the age of 7, which at that time was the early 90s, the specialist came back and said, we are not labelling this child. She's just 2 years under her learning ability. And they blamed that on me having bouts of tonsillitis as a child. I had my tonsils out when I was 7. So by their theory, everything should have improved once the tonsils was out and I was not missing any school. So big school, as we call it locally, absolutely despised every second of it. And I did achieve 7 GCSEs in A to C, believe it or not. But I was still told that I was stupid throughout big school because there was no support. So I used to try and make myself as invisible as possible to hide under the radar. I went to college when I was 16 to study drama, and it was quickly picked up that I was having difficulties. I didn't know how to turn a computer on because I'd been neglected. You know, brilliant at the singing, dancing, acting side of things. Paperwork was an absolute no-go for me. So they put me through a different diagnosis, and it turned out when I was 17 that I had dyslexia, dyspraxia, and Erling syndrome. If I read back through my paperwork now, it's horrendous because at the age of 17, I had the reading ability of an 8-year-old, the writing ability of a 9-year-old. Mathematical ability was better, which makes no sense. I think that was to an 11-year-old. But it did state that I got a type of dyslexia that only applied to 1 percentile of the dyslexic population, because my understanding of my verbal comprehension, so I could define words and what they meant, I could use them in sentences, and that was all fantastic. So there were so the understanding was there. It was just the pen to paper bit that was a no-go. And my pattern recognition was incredible as well. Problem solving skills, they were all off the charts fantastic. So until I was about 30, I'd really held those labels of stupid with me. So I was self-employed for a long time. I used to travel around the whole of the UK doing challenge events. I did fire walking, glass walking, bar bending and board breaking, all sorts of random stuff until I felt pregnant and then realised, I actually need what we call a proper job or a real job. which led me into the care industry, because it was somewhere that you could go into with pretty much no skills and be upskilled to an incredible level, which I fell in love with it. So I worked in adult care. I worked with privately for a lady with spinal cord injury. That led me down to children's residential care. So then I was working with children with emotional, social, behavioural disorders. Went into a second home, was working with kids with autism and ADHD. And all of a sudden, I'm having this really specific training, and I'm getting my level 2s and my level 3s. And all of a sudden, I'm getting this interest and this knowledge. And I started to realize that dyslexia, although was correct for me at the time, perhaps didn't encapsulate everything that was going on with me in terms of neurodiversity, because I was one of the people that believed what autism and ADHD looks like is in your typical white 8-year-old boy, you know, bouncing off the ceiling or non-verbal, these things. I wasn't aware that it had presented totally different for women, and especially older women. So it wasn't even until I went into my first training job when, in the space of a week, 3 colleagues asked me if I had autism or ADHD, and I was like, I don't. No. And my sister-in-law started working at a special school, and she said, I've always thought you had autism. I was like, right, I need to dig into this a little bit more for myself. So I thought, well, I'm already peer reviewed because I've got people with autism telling me I'm autistic or ADHD. So I started to do some of the online SARS, S tests, and they were all flagging as really high. There's different ones that you can take. You can take ones on private companies. And I flagged enough of those to go, okay, perhaps better go to the doctors and get this sorted out. So I went to the doctor, had a chat. He was still quite on the old school belief system around autism and ADHD. So he made the referral. I did the typical ADHD thing of not filling in my forms for 3 months. And then the typical autism thing, when I did fill them in, I sent about 12 extra sheets of paper telling them all of my everything that I'd faced from childhood up until this point. Then the issue that we're facing currently is I've been on the waiting list for 3 years, and it looks as though I've got another 2-year wait minimum, because I was referred to Sheffield, and now Sheffield have closed their books. This happened about 10 months ago, and there isn't a facility in Derbyshire. They're creating it at the moment. So off I popped back to the doctors to exercise my right to choose, and fantastic doctor said, if you ring Sheffield and have a chat with them about this, they will tell you the same thing that I'm going to tell you now, which is, and he did say this at the beginning actually of going through the process, not him, a different doctor said this to me, which is, if you've met the screening requirements, you've got your diagnosis, you just don't have the formal piece of paper to get medication and any adaptations formally in terms of NHS prescriptions. So he said, this is you, live your life, you've got your answer. Since then, I've done more training courses, and I'm like, yep, okay, I'm sticking these labels on. I'm removing the stupid and I'm putting the neurodivergent in place. And it's incredible because I feel like you can show up as your true, authentic self, and people are far more receptive to that. And I don't feel like I'm a freak or different anymore, because I can say, hey, just bear with me on this, and people go, okay. It's great. There you go.
I'm so glad you've changed the labels, and but unfortunately that has been the story for a very long time, and unfortunately still continues to be the story. Now we know more people are being assessed, we know more people are being recognised, but as you say, we have some real fundamental issues in terms of the processes and the ability to do that. But what a great way your doctor put it, you know who you are, live your life, you know, and that's allowed you to take that ownership of. And made a huge difference to how you can turn up. And it's great to hear you talking about authentic self and feeling that you can be that. And you're right, because people know if you're not turning up as that authentic self, don't they? You know,
100%. So I sort of come in, any meeting with a new learner, I am unapologetically myself. I'm not sure if this is going out in a podcast form or audio form. I'm sat here right now with the green hair and a pink jumper, which loads of learners, when they meet me, they go, "Oh, thank God you're normal." And I say, well, not quite, but I'm not scary. Let's go down that route.
But let's come to the what's normal. You know, ultimately, you know, we've got, again, like you had a perception of what autism looked like, and you know, and that it would present the same way for everyone. Absolutely not. So, you know, and you know, terms like normal, again, we need to get away from saying that, because what is normal? But the fact that you are turning up, you are who you are, and your learners go, "Oh my goodness, I can relax with you." That's exactly who you need to be. And no, that's great. So in terms of your learners, in terms of your role, then what difference does it make? You've already said when you turn up, it makes a difference immediately. But what difference does it make to your ability as a tutor to do your job and work with our learners?
Yeah, I think if we look at the sectors that I've worked in, both adult healthcare sector and children's residential sector, they are slightly different in terms of the type of learner that is drawn to these industries. Okay, so in terms of adult sectors, I worked with a much wider age range of people. So it'd be people in the 60s. You'll often find people that are nearing retirement wanting to do a job that's more rewarding or less KPI driven. And then with the people wanting to work with young people, the stories of their lives are so unique. But what you'll find is generally these aren't people that have excelled in education. So when they meet me and they go, "Oh, have I not got any GCSEs? I didn't do this, I didn't do that." I'm like, "Brilliant, me either." I have got GCSEs, obviously, but you know, I will use my lived experience to give them all the confidence that they need. And because of I call it my magical brain, I say, I don't want 12-page essays. I want to see who you are. So I'm always encouraging them to speak in their own voice. And every time I'm marking a piece of work, or every time I'm doing a professional discussion with them, I'm trying to always bring it back to what they're doing and what they're practicing and what it looks for them in their workplace. I don't want textbook answers. Anyone can do textbook answers. And I think where that shows up is in my achievement rates and in the feedback that learners give about me. They'll all say, "I felt cared for, I could trust my tutor, you know, and she adapted for what I need." And that comes from me not excelling in education myself. Because if education was easy for me, I'd assume it was easy for everyone else, where I know it's not.
Yeah, and again, it's so often the case that, you know, we have a very rigid system, you know, up to a certain point. It's why both you and I work in FE and skills, and I don't think you'll ever find us in the other parts of education, to be fair. But because there are such limitations, you know, and the ability to change how things are done for individuals, unfortunately, that system doesn't work for a huge amount of our young people coming through it, and hasn't done for a very long time. So it's really important that we're having these conversations, getting out there and going, but look, you know, and for you to be an example to those learners and go, yeah, this is where I came from, this is what I did, and you know, and now I'm here and I'm teaching you. It's such a fantastic example to be able to do that. So I think you've definitely covered quite a few of your superpowers, because I like the magic brain, but I quite often talk about superpowers. And something that I know Made by Dyslexia talks about a lot, because that movement is incredible. There was, I don't know if you saw, but Jamie Oliver, who's a keen advocate for it yesterday, was in Parliament talking about how we need to do things differently for those who are made by dyslexia. So, yeah, great to see it. Making headlines, seeing it on LinkedIn as a skill, all of those fantastic things.
Yes,
but we need to do that for all of our neurodiversities, don't we? Because it does bring such superpowers. So I will get to my question. You've already highlighted a number of superpowers you have, but are there any others you think your neurodivergence brings?
So I am going to rebrand anxiety right now. Okay. Anxiety is great because when you live in that state, I assume everybody else is too. So when I meet someone for the first time and I'm anxious, I almost project it onto them and I'm saying, right, so here's what we're not being worried about and this is what we're doing. So having that form of anxiety leads to natural empathy and genuine care for another person. So I'm never ever going to say that anxiety is a bad thing, because it means that you can be in someone else's shoes. The other superpower is I know how to get dopamine and I can use that to be a superpower. So I've incentivized my data monitoring sheet, which is what I call it. I've rolled that out to other team members. I use that as a training tool when people are shadowing me. So everything on my 12-tab Excel spreadsheet is color coded so that I can turn it green when it's met, which means my brain gets dopamine and my targets are met. So if I can teach other people how to hack their dopamine and get a good reward from work that doesn't need a manager to email you saying well done, you're naturally going to have a more fulfilling work experience. So that's that's a super.
Love it. What a great tip. Oh yeah, that's amazing. I absolutely love it. Excellent. Okay. So the only I suppose the only other question, that because you've talked about so much, and I had so many questions for you, but you've covered so much of it already, is what do you think, whether it be as a society or whether as employers, what's the one thing you'd like to say to people to enable them to embrace neurodiversity, or to dispel any misconception? What's the one thing you'd want people to know?
So I would say let go of any labels that you have labeled yourself with. I mean the negative ones, because once you let go of them, you can show up as your true authentic self, and people are going to be so much more receptive to that. So take away, say, the stupid, which was my one, and put something in there like creative even, and the world is going to be such a different place to navigate once you've got rid of those negative labels.
Yeah, and it comes to that celebration of all of our individualities and whatever they may be in whatever area of life.
Every area, not just
if we bring them all and we bring that authentic self, and how much better will we be in our communities, personally, professionally, all of those things. That's amazing. Massive thank you, Summer, for sharing your thoughts, and to really go through, because we've talked to people who it's been a lot later in life that they've started to recognize these things or got any kind of understanding of it. So to go further back has been really, really important. So one thing's becoming clear through our conversations, it isn't something to accommodate, it's absolutely something to celebrate, and I hope you're all feeling that as you're watching what we're talking about. We all think, work, communicate differently, and that's what makes our team stronger. If we are all the same, where's the new ideas going to come from? Where's the challenging what we've always done and making it better? If we can continue to challenge these misconceptions, embrace these strengths and superpowers, and create truly inclusive environments, we are all going to win. Thank you for everyone who's been joining these conversations. I hope to have many, many more, because there's so many more people I wish to talk to. But let's keep learning, supporting and championing the incredible value of neurodiversity in our workplaces and beyond.